Communism is a political ideology rooted in the thoughts of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. This ideology appears to counter the occurrence of the gap between people who have capital or the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. In other words, the working workers who only use their energy to work for the capital. During the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century, it dominates the movement of society. The proletariat lives only by selling its labor force and makes no profit anywhere else. Types of capital/capital, misery, life, and death. Their arbitrary existence depends on the needs of the labor force. Therefore, it depends on the ever-changing business conditions and the uncertainty of uncontrolled competition. On the other hand, the so-called bourgeoisie was the class that owned capital or capital, which played an important role in industrial society at that time. In its development, communist ideology was divided into two streams, namely the social democratic school called socialism and the communist school according to the teachings of Karl Marx and Lenin. The social democrat school requires a parliamentary and electoral democratic form of government. Meanwhile, the communism of Karl Marx, which became the basis of the struggle of Karl Marx, Lenin, Stalin, and Mao Zedong, is the communism of the proletarian dictatorship, which rejects the parliamentary democratic system of government. Principles of implementing the communist ideology. First, totalitarian system. All political, religious, economic, and educational activities are fully regulated by one main actor, namely the state. Second, one-party dictatorship system. The communist system only recognizes one party, namely the Communist Party. Actually, this party cannot be called a political party, because the main reason for the existence of political parties is that they are representatives of groups of citizens who have different political views. Third, country economic system. The state abolishes rights, private ownership of the means of production, and the abolition of the market economy. The advantages of communism. It's easier to keep unemployment, economic woes under control, and inflation because the government has a lot of power and ownership over a lot of things in a country. So everyone is considered equal, so no one feels superior or inferior. Back to the principle that the government has full power for everyone in society. Disadvantages of communism. The monopoly that will be carried out with the government will certainly be very detrimental to the community. And human rights are no longer respected, and therefore many people are oppressed.
Etymologically, the notion of democracy comes from the Greek demokratia. This term is formed from two words, namely demos and kratos. Demos means people or residents of a place, while kratos means power or strength. The principle of democracy has been used since the 5th century BC to refer to the political system of Greek city-states, one of which was Athens. Democracy is a system of government in which power is held by the people and exercised by them directly or through free elections. According to Aristotle, democracy is the freedom of every citizen to share power with each other. This is because it is only through freedom that every citizen can share power within his country, on the basis of ideological principles. First, constitutional democracy. Constitutional democracy is democracy based on freedom or individualism. The characteristic of constitutional democracy is that the government's power is limited and it is not allowed to intervene and act arbitrarily against its citizens. The government's power is limited by the Constitution. Second, people's democracy. People's democracy is also called proletarian democracy with Marxism-communism orientation. People's democracy aspires to a life that knows no social class. Third, Pancasila democracy. Applicable in Indonesia, which originates from the social and cultural values of the Indonesian nation and is based on deliberation to reach consensus by prioritizing the balance of interests. As a political system, democracy has several advantages over other political systems. Dahl mentions that democracy has at least 10 advantages. However, we will summarize it more specifically. First, democracy prevents the growth of an autocratic government on one person, because autocracy mostly produces rulers who, in the name of something, use the superiority of a nation-state with coercion and violence to achieve its goals. Second, democracy guarantees its citizens to exercise rights that are not granted by a democratic system. Democracy guarantees its citizens greater personal freedom than any other possible alternative. And last, democratic governments give them the freedom to determine their own destiny, according to the laws they choose for themselves. In addition to the advantages mentioned above, of course, the democratic system has weaknesses. Several shortcomings were noted by S.N. Dubé. First, democracy is based on the assumption that all humans are equal, because they are familiar and have similar things in mental, spiritual, and moral qualities. However, critics of democracy dispute that assumption. Second, government by the majority is a rule held by ordinary people, who are generally unintelligent, have uncontrolled opinions and act emotionally unreasonably, have limited knowledge, lack the necessary free time to acquire information. And last, in a democracy, the government is the public, while the public or groups often act in a conspicuous way. People's actions are often impulsive and easily influenced by suggestions from other groups. In fact, there are some advantages of democracy that are not realized. In various countries that are said to be democratic, human rights violations still occur. For example, in the United States, the difference between black and white skin color